All right, so this morning we were talking about the way of diligence. What did we look at last week? Do you remember? The way of the way of the righteous, the way of righteousness. So as we go through each topic, it's always going to be the way of something positive, something good, something that we need to be living in. And so this morning, as we talk about the way of diligence, how would you describe it? How would you explain diligence? Day after day after day, okay?
Be faithful in what you're doing.
Okay, be faithful in what you're doing.
Sticking to it.
Okay, sticking to it. Yep. Likewise with the way of righteousness and the way of wisdom in general. Why do we have trouble with this? Why do we struggle with being diligent?
Life gets in the way.
Okay, life gets in the way.
We want things our own way.
Okay, we want things our own way. How does that interrupt diligence?
Our sin is embedded in us.
Okay.
If we don't know the Lord, sins are embedded in us. But also, even if we do know the Lord, we still want things our way, and when things don't go our way, we lose faith.
Okay, right. So diligence requires a long view, just as living in righteousness does. Just walking in wisdom requires the long view. Every single week we're going to see that if we're going to live in the way that Proverbs tells us is the path to life, it's going to require the long way. And can we do it on our own? Is the point of the book of Proverbs, here is what you should do, and work really, really hard to aim at what you should do? No, it's not. So what is Proverbs saying? It's not a self-help, although it helps.
Turn toward the Lord.
Okay, turn towards the Lord. As we turn towards the Lord, He helps us to be diligent. We can't be diligent in and of ourselves. We need the Lord working in us. And yet there's an aspect where we have personal responsibility to be diligent, to understand the benefits of walking in His ways and living in His ways. So we're going to be discussing diligence versus laziness. And in chapter 6, verse 6, so there's not necessarily, sometimes as we go through these, there is like a main section that deals with, let's say, righteousness or diligence. With diligence, it's kind of all over the place, so we're going to be jumping around. But this is, again, one of the major themes that you're going to see in the book of Proverbs is this idea of diligence. Chapter 6, verse 6, it says, "Go to the ant, you sluggard, consider her ways and be wise." Why would an ant show you wisdom? Or an uncle?
Watch an ant work.
What?
You have to sit and watch an ant work.
Okay, just sit and watch an ant work. How does that make you wise, though?
Well, if you pattern your life and work for what you want, you're not just expected to be happy. You have to work to get what you want. You always have to work at your Christian life too, because sin can slip in so easily.
Okay.
You're not working.
Okay, so there is this idea of needing to work for it, and you look at the ant, and they work for it. The author here is telling the reader, go humble yourself. Action is required. Picture the first time somebody would hear that. Someone who's kind of arrogant and lazy, and somebody goes up to them and says, go learn from the ant. The ant does better than you do. That's the heart. What's that?
They were me out.
Yeah. And so that's the idea of humble yourself. Go look at the ant. Even the ant does better than the lazy person. And it says, which having no captain, so they're speaking of the ant, which having no captain, overseer, or ruler, provides her supplies in the summer and gathers her food in the harvest. So the idea is be self-motivated. When there is work to be done, the ant does it. And it goes on down to verse 11. It says, "How long will you slumber, O sluggard? When will you rise from your sleep? A little slumber, a little folding of the hands to sleep. So shall your poverty come on you like a prowler, and your need like an armed man."
You know, just to have somebody call you a sluggard, I would just leave.
A wake-up call?
Yeah, I mean, that's just not something I would be called out. Sometimes I get that way.
Right. Well, if you look at it, it says 3 times, uses that word little. In verse 10, a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands. And the idea is just a little bit of inactivity leads to big consequences.
Pastor, I've struggled with this because for years we've heard God helps those who help themselves, and then you get slammed for that.
Okay.
And at the same time,
What Bible verse is that?
yeah, you're right. But at the same time, this to me sounds like God is helping those who do the work.
Okay.
And also on WDM, I was listening, and I can't tell you, I got just the tail end of it.
Okay.
But God was going to provide water, but he insisted that the people dig the ditches first. And
Right.
he wasn't going to provide the water until they dug the ditches.
Right.
So that goes back to me about God helps those who help themselves. So
Right.
tell me how I'm wrong.
So it's a balance of God provides and we have responsibility. God provides, but we are responsible with the abilities and capabilities and gift and abilities that he's given us, and stewarding those well, then as we steward them well, he blesses us. But if the lazy person, the sluggard, says, well, God's going to provide, or the government's going to provide, I don't need to do anything, that's not the heart of what God is teaching, right? Because as you think about work, who created work? Who modeled work for us? God did. He created it. When do we see God modeling work for us?
And his creation.
His creation. Okay, creation account. How many days in the creation account did God work? 6 days. How many days did he rest? 1. Did God have to rest?
No.
Why not? He's God, right? Yeah. Duh, he's God. Do we have to rest? Yeah, so he rested for us to see we need rest. Why do we need rest? To remember and to be restored, right? But to remember, he's the one who provides. Yes, we work, but we only get the outcome or receive an outcome because of his provision. We're not getting the outcome because we're great in and of ourselves, but he blesses us as we work, as we're diligent and working for him. Now, we're going to come back to this, but several times in Proverbs, it talks about sleep kind of almost in a negative way. Wouldn't you say if you just read verse 10, it's a little bit negative? And you read verse 10 and you say, well, I shouldn't take a nap. Is that the point? What's the point?
Keep going.
Keep going?
You don't need as much sleep as you need to be working.
Okay, you don't need as much sleep as you need to be working. I think it's dealing with an overall mindset. Think of somebody who you know is diligent. They're a hard worker. Somebody who works hard, do they expect other people to provide for them? No, right? So you can have a good balance there of working hard and knowing that God will provide as you work hard. And then there are people who work hard and expect that it's only themselves who produce the outcome, and they have no trust in God. Is that the point of this? No. And then you have the lazy person who says, I'm not going to work because God's going to provide. And so as we go down through all these verses, we're going to see this dichotomy, this struggle between working hard and realizing it's not all in our own power. Realizing that as we work unto the glory of God, he provides what we need. Not what we want, but what we need, right? So I don't know if that was a long answer to answer what you were asking or not.
Pastor, last line of there was a little folding of the hands to sleep, which I see now I catch that is pray before you sleep.
Where does it say pray?
Oh,
It doesn't say pray, but folding of the hands to me means to fold your hands in prayer. Now that's the way I think it, and I never realized that other people think it differently, but that's my way of thinking.
So I think when he talks about the folding of the hands, all throughout Proverbs it talks about the works of people, what they do with their hands. And so it's the idea, the picturing of being idle, of if your hands are closed, you're not working.
It says a little folding of the hands to sleep. So to me, it's prayer before you sleep.
I think you have to go
I
on to verse.
know,
verse 11.
nobody's gonna agree with me, it's just the way I see it.
Well, this is being posed in a negative sense.
Pardon?
This is being posed in a negative sense. It's not being posed in a positive sense that you should be folding your hands to fall asleep and
Oh,
pray.
I took it.
Sure. So I think as you look at, good teaching point, I think, in the fact that as we read Proverbs, we can't take them as standalone. We also have to read verse 1 with verse 2, or the part 1 with part 2, and understand that they work together and not take things just as a snippet, because if we do, then we're missing, I think, the section that the focus is there, if that makes sense. So moving on to then chapter 10, verse 4, it says, he who slacks and who has a slack hand becomes poor. So again, he's dealing with the ideas of the hand, not working, not using your hands. He who is slack with the hands becomes poor, but the hand of the diligent makes rich. And again, it goes back to, as we go through this, what's the biblical sense of why we should be diligent? What's the biblical sense of why we should be diligent? What's the benefit that we're looking for? Is it riches?
At times.
At times, okay.
If we're diligent in everything, we're going to be diligent in our faith.
Okay, if we're diligent in everything, we're going to be diligent in our faith. There's a famous person who says, how you do anything. What's the famous saying, Karen?
How you do anything is how you do everything.
Right. So it's that sense of if you are diligent in your work, you're going to be diligent in your faith. So sometimes people will look at this and say, God wants me to be rich. Does God want you to be rich?
In faith.
Not necessarily. Does God want you to be poor and reap the products of being lazy? God wants you to reap the benefits of being diligent for him, because his blessings far outweigh any earthly riches we'll receive, we have. And so as you go through here, it's going to talk about rich and poor, and that is a natural overflow of working and being a hard worker. But I don't think the main focus is financial gain. It's the gain of life as you do life diligently, as opposed to the lazy person. The person who's diligent, are they only happy because they're rich? No, they find satisfaction in life because of their work, and ultimately their work is satisfied in the Lord. That's a diligent person. So that's what it's pushing you toward, not riches, not just the work to get rich, but it's letting you see that the lazy person, who is their life all about? Themselves, right? They don't care to work. They don't care to glorify God. And so the poor person invites all this calamity, all these heartaches, all these problems, and part of it is financial, upon themselves as they're lazy.
But at times, the lazy person lives better than we do. Now.
Okay, so now, but also,
They might live
hypothetical situation. Somebody who doesn't work, and let's say they don't work and they just live on the government, or however. Let's say they can work and they don't, okay? I get there are legitimate reasons why people can't work physically, and I'm not arguing that. Let's say there's somebody who could work and they're abusing the system, right? And they're making ends meet, okay. Is that person living a fulfilled life? No, right? So again, it goes beyond just financial means, but think of people you know in your life who are seeking to abuse the system, seeking to be lazy, seeking to take advantage of anybody and everybody just so they don't have to work. Is that person living a full life? Are the people around them living a full life? No. Think about a diligent person, a person who works hard and is working for the glory of God. They're living a full life. Is everybody around them living a full life? Absolutely. Right? You want to be around those kind of people.
But Pastor, you think that they don't think that they're living a full life, but they do think they're living a full life. A lot of them do think they're living a full life because
maybe that's all they know.
Right.
That's all they know.
They watch you over here working and they think you're wasting your time.
Right.
Not realizing that we're Christians, everything they have.
Right. Well, yeah, again, it goes back to that's all they know, so that's the fullness that they know, but it's not full.
Multiple generations, so that's all they know.
Right. Chapter 10, verse 26, it says, as vinegar to the teeth, the smoke to the eyes, so is the lazy man to those who sent him. And kind of the humor of this proverb is comparing the lazy person to these pains in life. Vinegar on your teeth, smoke on your eyes. One translation or one commentary said, the point is, don't employ a lazy person and expect them to benefit you. If somebody is going to choosingly be lazy, you don't have to put up with them in a working sense. You're not going to motivate them. If they're choosing to be lazy, don't anticipate that you're going to be the one who changes them. That's their mindset, and they're going to have to reap their choices. Chapter 12, verse 11, he who tills his land will be satisfied with bread, but he who follows frivolity is devoid of understanding. Another translation says, whoever chases his fantasies lacks sense. And again, so there is this sense that if you look at, I know I'm 34, but I would say younger than me. If you look at even, I guess some guys my age, if you look at guys my age, a generation younger than me, there is this sense of the world lacks sense in the fact that it's chasing fantasies. There's this whole environment of video games that people can get consumed with and not want to work. There's a whole generation coming up that doesn't want to work, and they expect it to be given to them. Is their life full? No. Maybe that's all they know, but they're lacking a full life that this is offering, that diligence offers to them.
Satan is a deceiver.
Right, and so he's offering something cheaper than what God offers. He's offering laziness when God offers diligence, and diligence offers something so much of more value than just financial. But financial gain is part of it. So again, going back to the idea of working with your hands or the hand of the diligent will rule, but the lazy man will be put to forced labor. In the end, the idea is the lazy man doesn't win. He's still going to, at some point, have to work, and he's going to hate it. He's not going to like it. But those who are diligent don't mind work. You might know people who say, yeah, I don't mind work. I like work.
No.
And you might know people who say, I love being lazy. And you're like, I can't do that. I got to go work.
And then there's people that love their work, but they don't like the boss that does not enjoy what you're doing, even though you're doing it because that's your job and you like it. But
Sure,
they find
yep.
fault with everything you do.
Right, yep, for sure.
But then you have to lean on God even harder.
Right. And then chapter 13, verse 4, it says, the soul of a lazy man desires and has nothing, but the soul of the diligent has been made rich. And often, it's talking about often the desires of the lazy person is dreaming about better days to come, or their next big break, or their next thing that they're going to be given to, and it never comes. But you know, diligent people who they have what they need. And they're not living in want 24/7. They're not dreaming about things they can't do or can't have. But the diligent have been made rich. And sometimes you hear the lazy person or the poor person, but it's often a lazy person who's poor who says this. they hate the rich, or they get mad at the rich, right? You've heard people say that. They say the rich are wicked, the rich are evil, or they get mad at somebody else in the community because they hear they're rich. Jealousy. Who employs them? The rich. Is the rich bad? Is the rich in and of itself wicked? No, absolutely not. If they're using their finances, if they're using their gifts, their abilities, whatever God's entrusted them with, if they're being good stewards, you as the poor person want that. Because they're going to employ you, and as you work for them, you can come out of that laziness. You can come out of that poverty as you switch your mindset from this mindset of being lazy to the mindset of being diligent. And God uses the rich to elevate you out of bad, difficult situations. 14 verse 4, it says, where no oxen are, the trough is clean, or the trough is clean, but much increase comes by the strength of an ox. I love this one. It takes a minute to figure it out. Or it took me a minute. I'm not as smart as an ox, apparently. What's the point? What'd you say, Ron?
It doesn't take much to figure it out if you're a farm person.
Right, and I'm not, so it took me a minute.
You're not doing anything in the field to reap a reward.
Okay, right. If you're not having to clean anything out, if you're not having to clean out your barn, your stalls, okay, it's nice. You don't have to work there. But then what are you missing? Yeah, a harvest, a crop, anything, a product of what that work does. And so you will see lazy people, they say, yeah, you got to mess with that. I don't have to mess with that. That's true. They don't. But they also don't get the reward that you get. And then when you get the reward, they're like, oh, you're a wicked, evil person. I'm not blessed the way you're blessed. Right? The Bible doesn't teach free handouts for the sake of the individual. And that's what people sometimes miss. They say, well, the church is there to help people, absolutely, in a time of need. But the church is not there to fix lazy people. The church is not there to fix someone who's lazy and doesn't want to work. The church can help in a time of crisis, and we should. But if a person doesn't want to work, if we just keep giving them financial gain, we're not helping them see the bigger need of living life for the glory of God, living life in a diligent way. We're not helping them see the greater benefit of living life in a diligent manner instead of a lazy manner. Chapter 18, verse 9. He who is slothful in his works is a brother to him who is a great destroyer. What's the point? Do these go together? How so?
If you don't work, it's just like an abandoned house that sits there, or that people who live there don't take care of.
Okay.
Eventually, it's going to fall down around.
Okay. So it's eventually going to fall down around them. What's the heart of the slothful person and the heart of the destroyer? What's their heart's desire? What did we say the heart of the diligent person? They're focusing on who? The Lord. The diligent person is focusing on the Lord and working unto the Lord. The lazy person is focused on themselves. Somebody who goes around and is destroying things or is breaking down things, who's their focus? Themselves. I mean, they're gaining something of themselves in a weird, twisted way of making a name for themselves or feeling like they're powerful. This is the point. Those who are slothful and those who are destroyers or a great destroyer, the idea is they're in the same boat together. They're missing the point of life. They're missing the life that God has to offer. 20 verse 13, do not love sleep lest you come to poverty. Open your eyes and you will be satisfied with bread. The number of hours that you sleep is not the point here. There are studies done that show that different people need different amounts of sleep. You know people who function on like 3, 4, 5 hours of sleep, and they're great. And you might say, you don't want to see me if I'm functioning on 3, 4, 5 hours of sleep, right? You might say, hey, I need 8, or I need 9 or 10. Now, everybody is different in what their body genuinely needs. And so it's not the amount of hours that you sleep, but what's the point? Do we need rest? Absolutely. And if you understand, I need rest, and I need this much rest in order to be this productive for the Lord, that's okay. Because God knows your heart. And so the point is, what is your heart? Is your heart's desire to be lazy, or is your heart's desire to serve God, to work and be diligent for Him? And as you do that, He provides for you. He provides your needs. 21 verse 5, the plans of the diligent lead surely to plenty, but those of everyone who is hasty surely to poverty. And so it talks about the plans of the diligent. It's the idea of thinking ahead, planning ahead, processing life instead of just letting life happen to you, but planning ahead, being diligent, ensuring that you're being a good steward of whatever God has entrusted you with. But those who are hasty, those who don't plan, those who are careless, end up in poverty. 23 verse 6, it says, do not overwork to be rich, because of your own understanding cease. Will you set your eyes on you read here. Will you set your eyes on that which is not? For riches certainly make themselves wings. They fly away like an eagle toward heaven. What's the point?
Don't overwork yourself.
Okay, don't overwork yourself. Okay, let money not be the focus. Have you ever come across somebody who you thought was a really, really, really hard worker, and then an opportunity came up for them to work without getting any financial benefit, and they said, nah, I don't need to do that? That quote-unquote diligent person, is their focus on the Lord and glorifying Him through their work, or is their focus on themselves and getting themselves rich? Focus on getting themselves rich. The heart of these two verses is, don't overwork yourself. Know when you need to stop. Because you're not the one who makes you rich. Your goal is not to be rich. Because if your goal is, I want to get rich, are you ever going to have enough money? No. You always want more, right? You never get enough. And so you know people who are diligent. So this is warning against the extreme of, you could say, being a workaholic, in the fact of you're working in order to make yourself rich or make a name for yourself. We are not working to make ourselves elevated. And it's a warning against, don't work so hard that you're seeking to elevate yourself. And I found this quote earlier this week regarding this, and I thought it was really helpful. It said, wealth is no less elusive than social prestige. And so people will sometimes even work really hard just for social prestige, so that they can be recognized. If that's the heart behind why you're working for the wrong reasons. You're falling in the same category as the lazy person who's only thinking about themselves. Chapter 24, verse 30, I went by the field of the lazy man, and by the vineyard of a man devoid of understanding. And there it was, all overgrown with thorns. Its surface was covered with needles. Its stone walls was broken down. When I saw it, I considered it well. I looked on it and received instruction. You can look at other people's lives and gain understanding from them, and use their life as a warning for your life, right? Sometimes it takes us to be the one who the lesson's happening to for it to really stick. It would be so much better if we could learn from everybody else's mistakes and never make a mistake ourselves. And the point is, you can learn from other people. And in this instance, he was walking by and he learned from the lazy person. And this is what he learned. A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest. So shall your poverty come like a prowler, and your need like an armed man. So again, posing verse 33 in a negative light, not in a positive light, in a negative light, a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands, not working, so shall your poverty come like a prowler and your need like an armed man. So again, similar to what we saw in chapter 6, verse 10, but it's playing out, again, that same lesson. 27 verse 23, it says, be diligent to know the state of your flocks and attend to your herds, for riches are not forever, nor does a crown endure all generations. What's the point here?
Know what your own life is, and you're not going to go to heaven just because your grandmother did.
Okay, so there can be a spiritual aspect, you're saying. So you're not just going to go to heaven because your grandparent did. That's true.
Don't rest on past successes.
Okay, don't rest on past successes. I think that's certainly there too. Was somebody else going to say something?
I was kind of taking it as like talking to the person who's the second or third generation who has
Yep.
inherited this, you know, you're in a good shape. And
Yep.
you can't just skate free.
Right.
Pay attention to it.
Right. Because how many times do you see like a parent or two uncles or whoever start up a business and they pass it on to the kid and that business just tanks? The idea is don't rest on their success. Don't even rest on your own previous success, because the point is we're not working diligently for a time to ever stop being diligent. And this kind of brings up the heart behind, is retirement mentioned in the Bible? Now, do our capacities wane? Yes, absolutely. But we don't work, I don't know, 20, 30 years diligently than to just go be lazy.
We're back to the end.
Yeah, right. You're back to the end. And that's kind of how some people see it, though. And that's, again, not living life to the potential. If you're a diligent person, you're going to be diligent the whole way through. You know people who have retired and they don't do anything. And then they complain about how boring retirement is. And then you know people who retire and they can't stop doing because they enjoy it. And their life is full. And so that's the point. Again, it's not about riches. That is a product. But the point is your life is full as you are diligently living for the Lord. I need to be done in a second. Give me 2 minutes. When the hay is removed and the tender grass shows itself, the herbs of the mountains are gathered in, the lambs will provide your clothing, and the goats the price of a field. You shall have enough goat's milk for your food, for the food of your household, and the nourishment of your maidservants. So the point is, again, don't rest on previous success. This is the outcome if you are diligent. Your needs will be provided. God will provide sufficiently for you. Now, Proverbs 31. Again, dealing with this idea of diligence and as opposed to laziness. What's Proverbs 31 about? You tell me. It's probably one of the most known Proverbs. The virtuous woman. And so it says in verse 10, who can find a virtuous wife? For her worth is far above rubies. Her worth is higher value than anything you can ever find. Here's why. The heart of her husband safely trusts her, so that he will have no lack of gain. The first part of this verse, what's it mean? What's that talking about? The heart of her husband.
That he doesn't have to worry about her.
Okay, he doesn't have to worry about her. So when it talks about the heart of the husband, is this talking in a romantic sense?
No.
No, it's talking in like a straightforward, black and white, factual sense that I know who she is. I know her character. I can trust her. And I lack no gain because I know her character and I know what she will provide. I know her capacities to manage my household. And so here are the benefits. She does him good and not evil all the days of her life. She seeks wool and flax and willingly works with her hands. Again, going back to the idea of the hands working. She is like the merchant ship. She brings her food from afar. She also arises while it is yet night. Some do, some don't, that's fine. And provides food for her household and the portion for her maidservant. So again, the point isn't, don't take this to your wife and say, hey, you're not fulfilling verse part A, whatever. The heart of this is, the same is true for a husband. If you're a husband who's diligent, your wife can rest in your character, who you are, knowing that you will do what is needed to provide. And again, if you're both in this together and you can trust each other equally and know that you're both seeking to diligently serve the Lord, that's the ultimate place of where marriage can thrive. When you're both living for the Lord, you're both seeking to walk in the path that the Lord provides in diligence, in working together on your marriage, working together in your life, working together in life apart from each other, and trusting each other that you're both being diligent. And so as we live life, live diligently, not just for financial gain. There is a product of that, an outpouring of that. But we want to live diligently because God says this is the path to life. This is one of the paths I want you to live in, walk in, so that you can experience life to the full. Let's pray. Father, Lord, as we consider walking in diligence with you, our heart's cry is Father, reveal to us our heart. Father, reveal to us our true motives. Father, you know what we struggle with. Sometimes we struggle with being lazy. Sometimes we struggle with being diligent for the wrong reasons. And Father, it always comes back to help us to have a pure motive, a motive to serve you, to honor you, to glorify you, and help us to rest in you as you provide the gifts and abilities we need to do what you've called us to do. And Father, I think too is we who are parents, we who are grandparents, as we live, other people are watching us. We're modeling a life for other people to see. And so, Father, help us to be a good witness, a good testimony for you. We ask these things in Christ's name. Amen.